Hello and welcome back, my friends. Today, I've got an important gardening episode to share with you all. I'm going to be doing some fertilization. I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to share with you guys the most appropriate, correct way to fertilize your garden to create the most resilient plants that produce lots of flowers and fruits. Now, if you're like me, a lot of us gardeners, when we first get going, we don't give much thought to how we're fertilizing, whether it be with a granular or a soluble fertilizer. Oftentimes, we'll just kind of apply it randomly to different plants, especially if we see that they may be in need. And although that's okay, there is a way that you can really hone in to some of these macronutrients that these plants depend on in order to thrive. So we're going to be focusing on what's known as the NPK value. Now, regardless of the fertilizer that you're buying, you're going to see a 3-digit number that's going to give you a nitrogen value, a phosphorus value, and a potassium value. Each one of those is extremely important so that you can hone in, dial in to what it is you're trying to feed your plant and at the appropriate time. So let's start with nitrogen, the N value. The higher the nitrogen level, the more you're going to create that green, leafy, vigorous growth in the plant. It's best to apply nitrogen fertilizers when the plant is just starting to maybe wake up out of dormancy, or your seeds are starting to sprout and you're trying to get that vigorous growth up front. But later on in the gardening season, as the plant begins to mature, you're starting to see some flower development, that's when you want to back up off the nitrogen, because if you continually feed nitrogen at this point, you're going to be predominantly producing that vigorous green leafy growth. And a lot of times that's also going to bring in insects like the aphids that are going to swarm your plants. So you want to back up off the nitrogen later in the season and start to feed a higher phosphorus and potassium value. Now, phosphorus is really good for the root development of your plant. It's good for creating a nice, healthy flower set, a fruit set. And the potassium is kind of like your balancer, a big balancing act that's occurring there. It's helping to regulate the root growth so it's not too vigorous. It's helping to regulate the green new growth, the top growth of the plant. And it's just creating a nice balanced system altogether. So typically you're going to have a full spectrum fertilizer early when you first start fertilizing: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Later on, back up off the nitrogen and start feeding with the phosphorus and potassium. So I started this batch of Comfrey Tea about 13 days ago, and it's smelling quite pungent. It's ready to go. I gave it a couple stirs throughout that brew process. I covered the top to keep any insects out, flies, mosquitoes, that sort of thing. But this stuff's ready to go. Now, Comfrey has an NPK value. It has a full spectrum of nutrients for your plants. It has a 314 NPK value. That's 3 nitrogen, 1 phosphorus, and 4 potassium. So it's a pretty good fertilizer to apply to your plants any time of year, especially though in the earlier stages, as it does have that nitrogen value there. So this here is the amazing Comfrey plant. And not only does it make a wonderful liquid fertilizer, it does a great job as a chop and drop, just chopping the plant back and dropping it around as a mulch layer throughout your garden, because it's a cut and come again plant. It'll keep on flushing out new growth. Now, what makes this particular variety of Comfrey so valuable, this is the Bocking 14, is that it doesn't produce the viable seeds that can make Comfrey kind of grow out of control. It is going to spread a little bit by roots, so you want to continue to chop and drop the plant and keep it in check. But it's a wonderful plant to have around. It's a plant ally. And it's also part of my first aid kit. It has a history of usage as a topical, being used for cuts, scrapes, burns, even broken bones. It's known as nip bone, in fact. So if you're not already growing the Comfrey, I suggest that you learn as much about the plant as you can. All right, so all those leaves that I put in here, they've literally disintegrated. All the soluble nutrients in the Comfrey have broken down into the tea in less than 2 weeks. There's very little actual matter left. Now, Comfrey has a very deep taproot, and that taproot mines these minerals and macronutrients from deep down in the soil surface that other plants can't get to. And that's why we're able to make this powerful fertilizer here. Now, what I like to do is just use a cup or two in a 2-gallon watering can, and then I'll dilute this with some water. Some people complain about the smell. Well, it's really not that bad. You don't want to get it on your skin or your clothes. But hey, it's free and it works. So here I've got some perennial greens that are growing in my garden. And this would be a wonderful plant To Fertilize with this Comfrey fertilizer. Now, not only can you apply this as a root drench, but you can also put it in a spray bottle, backpack sprayer, or just dump it right over the leaves of your plant, and it will uptake those nutrients and feed the whole plant that way as well. Now, for my other plants that have already started to flower and set fruit, what I like to use is this liquid kelp. This is organic liquid kelp. And all I'm going to use here is just a couple ounces, maybe 3 ounces in this 2-gallon container, a couple ounces per gallon. You can do a little more, a little less, doesn't matter. And this is good to go, just like this, just as with the Comfrey Tea. You can use this as a foliar feed as well. You can put it in a backpack sprayer. This does a great job helping to keep your plants that are already flowering and fruiting in balance, in check, keeping the nitrogen level down. This is mostly high in potash or potassium. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just add a little bit of this Comfrey fertilizer in there as well. Just gives it a little bit more of that phosphorus and just a tad of nitrogen. And we'll feed these goji berry plants here, just loaded with berries. Now, there are other products that you can purchase as well. I just picked this one up. This is called More Bloom. It's by Alaska, the same company that I use for my fish emulsion. This is made with fish. It doesn't say approved for organic gardening, and I plan on using this for more of my ornamental plants like my roses and such. But you can see here it's got a 0-10-10 value. This is perfect for creating an abundance of flowers and fruit sets in your garden. So you can use this for edible crops as well. But if you can find something like this that works for you, whether it be a soluble fertilizer or a granular, this is going to be perfect for those later stages of growth when you've got flowering, you've got fruit sets occurring. This is going to take your garden to the next level. I'm going to feed these Echinacea flowers here. They haven't yet started flowering, but they're just about to. You got some green growth. You want to stabilize these plants a little bit here, balance them out. Echinacea is another wonderful first aid plant. The roots of the plant are very powerful. So that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you found the information helpful, and now you know how to hone into the different micronutrients in your garden and feed your plants accordingly. Learn this stuff, apply it, and reap the results. You'll be happy you did. And so with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have yourself a great rest of the day. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.